For a long time, women's health has been treated as a scaled-down version of men's health. The same rules, the same advice, the same fitness trends. The only difference: everything gets made smaller. Smaller equipment, smaller calorie targets, sometimes a different color added on top. But biology doesn't work that way. In this video, we're going to explore the complete science of female physiology and why nearly everything you've been told about training, nutrition, and recovery may be working against you instead of for you. We'll discuss why fasted training backfires for women, how the menstrual cycle affects performance, why cold plunges need different protocols, and what actually works for building strength and longevity in the female body. You'll learn practical strategies for fueling, training, and recovering that align with your biology, not against it. We'll cover puberty through menopause, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why women are different from men, and how to use that knowledge to transform your health. This is a master lesson on women's physiology. No fitness trends, no social media shortcuts, and no protocols borrowed from male data. This is about understanding how the female body actually works across puberty, the menstrual cycle, perimenopause, and menopause, and how to train, eat, recover, and live in a way that supports health, performance, and longevity. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want more clear, science-based explanations like this. Now, let's get into it. If you've ever wondered why two people can train the same way, eat the same way, fast the same way, and get completely different results, this is why. Most of what we know about training, nutrition, fasting, recovery, and even supplements comes from male-only research. Not because women don't matter, but because women were considered too complicated to study. Hormonal fluctuations, menstrual cycles, pregnancy potential. So researchers chose the easier option: young, healthy men. Women were either excluded entirely or treated as statistical noise. That means calorie restriction protocols, fasting protocols, training volume recommendations, supplement dosing, injury prevention models, and recovery timelines were all designed around male physiology and then generalized to women. The problem is, female physiology is not just hormonally different. It is structurally, neurologically, metabolically, and evolutionarily different. When women follow advice that was designed using male physiology as the default, the results don't simply stall. Very often, they backfire. Instead of feeling stronger and fitter, many women feel more tired, more stressed, sleep worse, and become frustrated because their body doesn't seem to respond, despite doing everything they were told was right. This isn't a discipline problem. It isn't a motivation problem. It's a biology problem. In the words of Dr. Stacy Sims, women are not small men, and that difference starts before birth. Sex differences don't begin at puberty. They begin in utero. Female fetuses are more resilient to maternal stress. Male fetuses have higher miscarriage rates during maternal stress. From birth, girls tend to have more oxidative, endurance-type muscle fibers, higher mitochondrial density, greater fat oxidation capacity. Boys tend to have more fast-twitch fibers, greater anaerobic capacity, higher power potential, and higher proportion of glycolytic muscle fibers, which rely more heavily on glucose. This is not a disadvantage. It's a biological blueprint. Women are naturally better at long-duration work. Men dominate short, explosive output. These differences expand dramatically at puberty. At puberty, estrogen reshapes the female skeleton. Hips widen. Shoulders widen. Center of gravity drops. This changes what's called the Q angle, the angle from hip to knee. This affects running mechanics, jumping mechanics, landing forces, and knee stability. Girls become more quad dominant. Posterior chain engagement decreases. Because no one explains this, over 60% of girls drop out of sport by age 14. Not because they are weak. Not because they lack discipline. Because their bodies changed. And no one taught them how to train with those changes. Women experience ACL tears at a rate roughly 3 to 4 times higher than men. Key contributors include a wider Q angle, quad dominance, reduced hamstring engagement, poor lateral force training, and lack of landing mechanics education. ACL prevention in women is not about avoiding sport. It's about posterior chain strength, hamstring to quad balance, lateral movement training, single leg loading, plyometrics with control. Strength is protection. Women also require more essential fat. Men, roughly 4 to 8%. Women, roughly 12%. Women also have smaller hearts relative to body size, smaller lung volumes, lower hemoglobin, lower oxygen carrying capacity. This limits peak power and sprint potential, but not endurance. It also means women's bodies are designed with different priorities. Fat is not the enemy. It is functional tissue. And that difference starts in the brain. When women wake up in the morning, cortisol naturally rises. This is part of the circadian rhythm, a built-in alert system designed to help the body wake up, mobilize energy, and transition from sleep into activity. But women's brains are more sensitive to drops in blood sugar, especially in the early hours of the day. When no food comes in, and exercise is layered on top of that, the brain doesn't interpret the situation as discipline or fat burning. It interprets it as stress. At the center of this response is the hypothalamus. This is the control hub that regulates stress hormones, appetite, body temperature, sleep, and reproductive signaling. In women, the hypothalamus is far more sensitive to energy availability. When exercise begins without fuel, the hypothalamus asks a very simple question. Where is the energy coming from? If food isn't available, the body has to source energy internally. And the first tissue it breaks down is not fat. It's muscle. This is why so many women describe feeling tired but wired. Stress hormones stay elevated. Muscle tissue is broken down. At the same time, the body receives a signal to conserve energy and hold on to fat as a protective response. Men respond very differently to this same scenario. When men train without fuel, their glycolytic muscles are pushed to become more metabolically flexible. Women, however, are born with a higher proportion of oxidative, fat-burning muscle fibers. When women train without fuel, the body doesn't adapt by burning more fat. Instead, it becomes more protective. Calorie restriction and fasted training work well in men. However, for women, they trigger stress responses. Fasted training in women increases muscle breakdown, thyroid suppression, cortisol elevation, and fat storage. Women require roughly double the baseline energy intake per kilogram of fat-free mass compared to men. Stress hormones rise. Energy expenditure is reduced. Fat loss becomes harder, especially as women move into their late 30s and beyond. So fasted training doesn't teach women to burn fat. It teaches the body to protect it. Men can train fasted. Women should not. This is why such a small change can completely shift outcomes. Women need food before movement. Not a full meal. Not something heavy. Just enough fuel to tell the brain that the stress is safe. A small amount of protein. A little carbohydrate. That signal changes how the entire system responds. Neurologically, hormonally, and metabolically. Even a small pre-training intake protects lean mass and hormonal signaling. One of the most practical ways to do this is protein coffee. Many women don't feel hungry first thing in the morning, especially if stress is high or sleep has been disrupted. Appetite hormones can be blunted, but the body still needs fuel. Protein mixed into milk or plant milk, combined with coffee and prepared ahead of time, becomes an easy way to stabilize blood sugar, lower cortisol, protect muscle tissue, and improve training quality without feeling heavy or forced. Over time, this single habit often leads to better energy, better recovery, improved sleep, and better body composition. Eating earlier in the day also plays a powerful role in circadian rhythm alignment. Women have an earlier melatonin peak, greater sleep disruption pre-menstruation, greater jet lag sensitivity. Women who eat breakfast and finish dinner earlier often see improvements in glucose control, insulin sensitivity, and sleep quality. The same benefits many people try to achieve through intermittent fasting. Skipping breakfast keeps cortisol elevated throughout the day. Chronically elevated cortisol increases muscle breakdown, promotes fat storage, and interferes with melatonin release later at night. Poor sleep then feeds back into blood sugar instability, nighttime awakenings, and increased stress the following day. It becomes a reinforcing loop. Eating earlier supports sleep quality. Late meals disrupt hormonal recovery. This is one reason many women wake up during the night feeling restless or alert. It's often not anxiety. It's blood sugar dropping too low in a body that has been underfueled all day. Cardio-only training adds another layer to the problem. Long, steady cardio without adequate fueling or strength training breaks tissue down faster than the body can rebuild it. Over time, muscle quality declines, bone density decreases, and metabolic rate slows. Many women appear lean on the outside, but lack resilience underneath. Strength training changes that trajectory. Muscle is not just about appearance. It is metabolically active tissue. It plays a direct role in glucose disposal, insulin sensitivity, bone density, hormone signaling, immune function, and brain health. Strength training improves neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to adapt, form new pathways, and remain resilient as we age. This is one reason resistance training is associated with a reduced risk of cognitive decline and dementia later in life. Resistance training increases growth hormone, increases testosterone. Yes, in women. Stimulates cellular cleanup. Improves mitochondrial function. A common fear is bulking up. For most women, this fear is not supported by physiology. Muscle gain depends heavily on genetics, hormonal environment, and total energy intake. Most women do not build large amounts of muscle easily. In fact, chronic underfueling and excessive cardio make muscle gain harder. Strength training tightens tissue, improves posture, and creates structural support rather than bulk. Exercise itself is not punishment. It is controlled stress. The body adapts to the stress it is exposed to. Walking hills, lifting weights, and performing short bursts of intense effort train the nervous system to handle pressure more effectively. That adaptation carries into daily life. Emotional regulation improves. Stress tolerance increases. Recovery becomes faster. A trained body reacts differently to challenge. You don't need hours to get these benefits. 2 strength sessions per week, regular walking, and brief sprint intervals are enough to trigger meaningful adaptation. Sprint intervals are particularly powerful for women. Short bursts of high effort, followed by full recovery, improve insulin sensitivity, reduce visceral fat, strengthen the cardiovascular system, and stimulate mitochondrial health. All in a very time-efficient way. As women move through their 30s, 40s, and beyond, hormonal changes mean the body needs a stronger stimulus to preserve muscle and bone. Light weights and high repetitions eventually stop providing that signal. Heavier loads with fewer repetitions become necessary. Not for aesthetics, but for function, resilience, and longevity. This doesn't mean rushing. It means learning movement well first, then progressively increasing load over time. Exercise is a stronger stimulus for autophagy than fasting. Autophagy is the body's cellular cleanup process. It removes damaged components and recycles them for energy and repair. Fasting is not required for longevity. Movement is. The menstrual cycle is not a limitation. It's information. In the low hormone phase, the follicular phase, women have higher glucose sensitivity and greater stress resilience, making it the best time for higher intensity training and pushing your personal records. Post-ovulation, the luteal phase, women have higher core temperature, increased protein needs by roughly 12%, increased carbohydrate needs for high-intensity work, reduced heat tolerance. Late luteal, we see higher inflammation, reduced recovery, making it therefore the best time for deload, technique, and mobility work. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. When it comes to environmental stresses like cold and heat, women again respond differently than men. Cold exposure is a perfect example. Ice baths are often promoted as a universal solution for recovery and metabolic health. But for women, extreme cold can trigger an excessive stress response rather than adaptation. Women tend to vasoconstrict aggressively in cold environments. Blood is pulled away from the extremities as a protective mechanism. In very cold water, this response can be so strong that it prevents the metabolic benefits people are seeking. What actually drives adaptation from cold exposure is shivering. Shivering increases metabolic heat production, improves glucose utilization, and activates thermogenic pathways. For most women, ice baths are simply too cold to trigger effective shivering. Research and field data suggest women respond best to cool water, typically around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius, or roughly 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Male protocols use ice cold temperatures. Too stressful for most women. At this temperature, the body constricts, then begins to shiver. That response is what improves metabolic flexibility, insulin sensitivity, and stress resilience. For women, colder is not better. Adaptation is the goal. Heat exposure, on the other hand, is where women often have a physiological advantage. Women tend to tolerate heat better than men because they vasodilate before heavy sweating begins. This allows more gradual heat absorption and more effective adaptation. Sauna exposure activates heat shock proteins, which help repair cellular damage, improve mitochondrial efficiency, and increase resilience to future stress. Heat exposure improves cardiovascular function, blood vessel compliance, blood pressure regulation, glucose handling, and fat metabolism. From a longevity perspective, this matters because cardiovascular disease risk rises sharply for women after menopause. Women require longer exposure, slower sweat onset, greater cardiovascular adaptation over time. For general health benefits, 10 to 15 minutes in a sauna, 2 to 3 times per week, is sufficient. Consistency matters far more than intensity. Creatine is another area where women have been historically overlooked. Creatine is not a bodybuilding supplement. Creatine supports rapid energy availability in tissues with high energy demand, including muscle, brain, heart, and gut. Women naturally store significantly less creatine than men, partly because they have less muscle mass and partly because dietary intake is often lower. The liver can only synthesize about 2 to 3 grams per day. Supplementation fills that gap. Research shows creatine supports muscle strength, recovery, cognitive function, mood regulation, and bone health when combined with resistance training. It has demonstrated benefits across the female lifespan, including during pregnancy, perimenopause, and postmenopause. Women benefit from 3 to 5 grams daily. No loading. No carbohydrate pairing. The effective dose is small, about half a teaspoon. Timing is not critical. Consistency is. Benefits include muscle performance, brain energy, mood support, gut lining integrity, and reduced gastrointestinal distress. Creatine is not a stimulant. It does not masculinize women. It does not cause harmful water retention. It simply supports energy where energy is needed. Creatine is one of the most underutilized female health supplements. Gut microbiome diversity is critical for women. Ketogenic diets reduce microbial diversity, impair estrogen metabolism, and reduce serotonin production. Women require fiber diversity. Aim for roughly 30 different plants per week. Perimenopause can begin as early as the mid-30s. Symptoms include fat gain, poor sleep, mood changes, reduced training response, rising cholesterol, and rising insulin resistance. This is not stress. This is biology. Perimenopause is reverse puberty. Hormones don't disappear overnight. They fluctuate wildly. Estrogen can spike and crash. Progesterone declines first. The hypothalamus becomes less sensitive to feedback. The body that once responded predictably to training, food, and rest no longer does. This is not failure. This is transition. Hormones no longer drive adaptation. Exercise must. Key pillars: resistance training, high-intensity intervals, plyometrics, and short, high-quality sessions. Less volume, more intensity. As women move into menopause, the body needs a stronger stimulus to preserve muscle and bone. Light weights and high repetitions eventually stop providing that signal. Heavier loads with fewer repetitions become necessary. Not for aesthetics. For function, resilience, and longevity. Higher protein. Regular meals. Fiber diversity. Support gut health. Support bone density. The metabolic rules change. What worked in the 30s may not work in the 50s. This is not failure. This is adaptation. Menopause hormone therapy is not anti-aging. It is symptom management. It supports quality of life, not youth preservation. None of this requires perfection. It requires consistency. Fuel before stress. Move with intention. Build strength instead of restriction. Much of what you've heard in this episode comes from decades of research led by Dr. Stacy Sims, whose work has challenged male-centric assumptions in exercise and health science. If this episode resonated, her books and research are well worth exploring. Check the description below for links to some of her work. The deeper message here is empowerment. Women are not broken. They are mistrained, misfed, and misunderstood. When women train, eat, and recover in alignment with their physiology, performance improves, health stabilizes, and longevity increases. Women deserve strength. Women deserve space. In the gym, in health, in life. Now, that was a lot taken. Let's quickly recap the key learnings from this video so you can take them with you. First, fasted training works for men but triggers stress responses in women. Women need fuel before movement to protect muscle, stabilize hormones, and support fat loss. Second, eating earlier in the day supports circadian rhythms, improves sleep quality, and enhances metabolic health better than intermittent fasting does for most women. Third, strength training is essential. It protects muscle, bone density, brain health, and metabolic function. Light weights eventually stop working. Progressive load is necessary for longevity. Fourth, the menstrual cycle provides valuable information. The follicular phase is ideal for intensity. The luteal phase requires more protein and carbohydrates. Late luteal is best for deload and recovery. Fifth, cold exposure protocols designed for men are too extreme for most women. Women respond best to cool water around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius, where shivering can occur. Sixth, women have an advantage with heat exposure. Sauna sessions of 10 to 15 minutes, 2 to 3 times per week, support cardiovascular health and longevity. Seventh, creatine is one of the most underutilized supplements for women. 3 to 5 grams daily supports muscle, brain, mood, and gut health across the entire female lifespan. I have included a link in the description to some of our favorite creatine products for anyone interested. 8. Gut microbiome diversity is critical. Aim for 30 different plants per week, and be cautious with restrictive diets like keto that reduce microbial diversity. And finally, perimenopause and menopause are not failure. They are biological transitions. Training must become the stimulus when hormones no longer drive adaptation. Higher protein, heavier weights, and shorter high-intensity sessions become essential. Remember, women are not broken. They simply need training, nutrition, and recovery strategies that align with their unique biology. As always, I hope this helped you on your journey. Thank you for watching and for supporting this channel. If you'd like more lessons like this, remember to subscribe. Check out some of our previous episodes on screen. And feel free to share in the comments what topics you'd like to explore next. I'll see you back here for the next lesson at Longevity School. Goodbye.